Hello, everybody. Welcome to CoinFund Q&A. Today we have Risto and Henry from Streamr.com. Streamr is a tokenization platform for data. Guys, welcome. Thank you for joining. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about what Streamr does?
Yeah, thanks, Jake. Good to be here. My name is Henry. I'm founder and CEO at Streamr. Perhaps I'll tell a little bit about my personal background and then hand over to Risto, and then we can tell a little bit about what Streamr is and the history behind that, and especially what we aim to do in the future. Okay, so yeah, I'm a technical founder. Coincidentally, the whole founding team at Streamr used to work in finance, and more specifically in algorithmic trading. And of course, that's the field where the value in real-time data has been known for a long time, like basically since the 80s. And I've been building infrastructure and tools for real-time data for something like 10 years now. And that's kind of how the kind of ambition for real-time data got into the picture. And I'll talk a bit more about that, but I'll let Risto speak a bit as well. So go ahead.
Hi, nice to be here. On my background, I'm also engineer by training. Then I got my PhD from the States, from University of Pennsylvania, from the Wharton School in Finance, and machine learning, long time before it was fashionable. Then spent 15 years in London working as a quant and portfolio manager on the institutional asset management side before coming back to my native Finland and joining Henry and the team on what we are currently doing here.
Got it.
Sure.
So is Streamr a marketplace for data?
Yeah, it's a marketplace, but more importantly, it's infrastructure for real-time data. So the marketplace is kind of like an application on top. And then we also have the analytics engine that we're building. So perhaps if I do a quick dive into the history of Streamr and explain why we started to think about these kind of things and how we came to the idea of decentralization and using the blockchain technologies to help us do that. So basically, as we said, our background is in trading, and initially we started to create a tool for ourselves for trading, for algorithmic trading. So data comes in from the stock exchange. There are models that automatically react to that data and send outputs, for example, buy and sell orders to the market. And for this, we needed a tool that would enable the traders and the technical guys to collaborate in a meaningful way. And that's where the kind of visual programming paradigm originally came in, which is currently the user interface for the Streamr analytics engine. And I can show that to you later. You can check it out on our website. It's up and running. You can go and sign up and start using it. Anyway, now from trading, fast forward a couple of years, and everybody starts talking about IoT and the massive explosion of real-time data in the world pouring in from the millions and millions of sensors out there. And we started to think, okay, could we apply the infrastructures and the methodology and the tools that we developed originally for trading into IoT and all similar fields of business where real-time data is coming in? People want to react to that data in order to extract the value in the newest data. So we kind of made a product out of that. And Streamr is not a new project per se compared to some other projects in this space. We have quite a bit of history. So originally we started to make a cloud service, so a centralized service for analytics and data processing, and we did that for some time. We have existing customers who are using the product right now. But somehow we were struck by lightning somewhere like a year ago or something like this, and came in touch with decentralized technology and Ethereum and smart contracts and all of that, and we were like, holy shit, this has to be the future, right? So this is the only conceivable future for us, and somehow we knew that we have to get in there. We want to support this. We want to turn the product that we have into a decentralized one to kind of free the data transport from the chains of companies, especially the giants who are at the moment controlling the data flows of the world and monetizing it. And we start to think, how can we improve on that? How can we offer a platform for decentralized applications to use as a real-time data transport, but at the same time leverage the blockchain technologies and the whole tokenization idea to enable people to buy and sell data streams, that they produce or refine raw data by adding value to it and sell that onwards. So we kind of can create an economy of data streams there.
Right. And so you mentioned financial data, you mentioned like IoT. Kind of in my experience, different kinds of data have, often have very, very different requirements, right? Like,
sure.
IoT is going to be very large. Sure. Financial market data on, I don't know, liquid equities markets or something like that is poised to be very fast. Can you talk about the sort of gamut of data that you expect to capture in this platform, and how does that inform the, I guess, kind of architecture?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are targeting the kind of event data or timestamp data. Something happens somewhere in the world, a new data point is born, and there are some interested parties who subscribe to that data and want to get the newest piece of information immediately. So where we're aiming at is for high volume and low latency data transport, basically. So that makes it applicable to all kinds of automation systems, trading. Of course, we're not in the game of the very low latency trading. For that, you have to go into the same physical environment, minimize the physical distance to the exchange or something like that. But for commonplace trading, it's fine. Our network can scale horizontally up to billions of events per second, making it suitable for large data streams. We have a sharding scheme going on there on the whole network level, which enables that. So IoT, finance, I can see that also. For example, social media is one quite prominent data source to this kind of application. So we can have real-time data coming in from there. Personal biometrics, currently all the data, all the browsing data, bio data, heartbeat, whatever all devices can kind of extract out of us is going to silos, going to the companies who made those devices, who made those applications. If there's a possibility to kind of change that, that's definitely an opportunity and something that makes things much more flexible for everybody.
Got it. And so real quick, without kind of completely diving into how decentralization and tokens are operating within the system, I think that we should definitely dive into that. But just like on the data architecture level, are you guys proposed, like how does this fit into a decentralized network? You know what I mean? Like usually if you're bringing up a production grade, low latency, high volume system for data, you're using, I don't know, data centers, you're using in-memory databases to optimize all of the aspects of this. How does this translate into a decentralized domain?
Well, basically pretty well. I mean, clusterized real-time data pipelines are very commonplace in the cloud world, and our existing product also is based on that. We're using technologies like Apache Kafka there for data transport. Cassandra for storage and so on. And now the problem is that none of that is available in the kind of peer-to-peer world, right? So that's exactly the project we have to invent. So basically, there's nothing preventing doing that in that space. We can achieve decentralization by incentivizing people to run the nodes. So basically, what people do is they contribute bandwidth to the network, and they receive the native token of the network, the Datacoin, in exchange for their service. So for example, if we compare to say Golem, who we are good friends with, they kind of tokenize the computing power in the world, and we do kind of like the same, but for bandwidth and data transport, right? So basically, a node acts as a relay for data transport and routing, and a data publisher can connect to any node in the network, publish a new data point, and the data point gets transmitted to the valid recipient elsewhere in the network. So that's how it works on a high level. And of course, we want the data to be persisted as well. So for example, subscribers that suddenly lose connectivity and then come back again, they'll be able to query the history of the data in order to ensure that they receive all the messages in a particular stream or topic.
Mm-hmm. And someone in the chat here is asking, how do you get the live data? Where does the data actually come from?
Sure. So anyone can publish data onto the network. We are expecting to have organizations opening up the data, even data producing organizations such as the stock exchanges, Thomson Reuters, you name it, starting to share their data on the network or sell the data on the network because it makes their job easier, basically. They don't need to set up APIs and plan for scalability and defend against distributed denial of service attacks and handle keys and everything. So that's part of what the network does for them. They don't need the infrastructure because it's there. It's decentralized, right? So it's expected that they will start publishing data. People will start building applications that rely on data on the network. You can do a decentralized multiplayer game, for example, where I don't know, so the state of the game is being transmitted on the network and synchronized over the clients and so on. So I think it will enable new kinds of decentralized applications for sure, and it will open up new business models also for utilizing the data that is being produced in applications and organizations over the world.
Gotcha. And how does the consumer of the data know that the data is correct, especially in contexts like, market pricing, maybe some kind of proprietary data or something like that, etc. Sure.
I should actually let Risto answer every once in a while. I'm so I'm so excited to be here that I'm just shooting out answers.
Yes.
Risto can answer for.
No, but that's we discussed that in the white paper as well because it's a very important question. But we will provide facilities for the source of signing the data cryptographically, so that anybody can kind of satisfy themselves that the data actually comes from where it's supposed to come from. And we'll be kind of working with partners who can help with the automatic kind of key handling and key storage and facilitation of generating new keys automatically in software or hardware. So it's the whole field of kind of data provenance is critical, but something which we do take very seriously. We remain open to kind of using whatever solution is kind of gaining market acceptance, and don't want to kind of we'll not be building everything ourselves, but work with other teams and companies on that front.
Yeah, the cool thing is like the earlier in the process the data can be signed, the less there is kind of attack surface to manipulate the data. So there are technologies and some sensors that can already sign the data at the source, which kind of gives an end-to-end proof of intactness of the data. But of course, if you think of IoT, there are very small battery-powered devices that don't have much processing power. So typically they connect to a gateway and the data might be signed at the gateway. But there's that small gap between the sensor and the gateway where basically the data is being transmitted unsigned. But I think the world is moving towards signing it more and more at the source in order to kind of guarantee the origin of the data up to the very sensor where it's born.
So to get like slightly too technical for a second, if you can forgive me, so are we signing the data points at the tick level, at the batch level? Like isn't signing kind of an expensive thing to do in a low latency system like that?
Yeah, well, if you think of devices, signing on devices, basically there's bound to be like hardware for that, so it might not be a problem in that sense. Typically, IoT devices don't produce so much data that the signing would become a problem. But I think the base case is to have each and every event signed separately in a stream. That enables especially the use case where many parties are contributing events to a single stream. So that way you can identify who sent each event in the stream. There might be some optimizations in there. For example, you could sign many events at once or push events and then push a kind of combined hash signed for those, but that would lead to a little bit of delay between getting the data and kind of being able to verify that. The optimal case, of course, which even rarely happens at the moment in the blockchain space, is that you want to be able to verify the data before you use that. So, for example, there are some Oracle services available, but they might produce a proof for you somewhere else and then deliver the data to a smart contract. And you can like post-mortem go and verify that the data was tampered with or something. But that's a start. But of course, the optimal case would be to, here's a data point. Okay, it checks out, and then you use it, right? Mm-hmm. So this is something that will be a core part of the Streamr network.
Got it. Cool. Thank you. So zooming out on kind of a business level, right, and taking the point of view of a customer or a consumer of the data. You mentioned that on the other side, the producers or supply side of the data is kind of maybe even trusted institutions. You call that, I think, Thomson Reuters, right? So like, why would I go to your network versus going to Thomson Reuters directly?
It might be the easiest place for you to find that data. I mean, it's bound to have a selection of data. Your application might want to combine different data sources, not only data from Thomson Reuters, but maybe also weather data. You might want to add some social media data or something. And by using our network, you only need to kind of integrate to one interface in your application instead of going always to the original source and integrating to 10 different interfaces and putting your credit card details on each of those services and then taking it from there. So basically, if you have a single interface for data delivery and payment, it enables people and machines to trade data, right? So there's now, your question implies that the consumer is a human being, but actually we have to consider that there's bound to be more machine-to-machine messaging than people-to-people messaging by orders of magnitude. And for that, I think we need the infrastructure, but also we need the kind of monetization mechanisms in there to make that work. So for example, a car, let's say a car can subscribe to traffic information from other cars, and then again, in turn, share the data that it is producing itself and sell that to other cars. So these machines can start kind of juggling that data peer-to-peer among themselves and exchanging value while they also exchange information.
Yeah, that's really interesting, especially like in the car example. I don't know if you guys have ever looked into this, but have you ever thought about how Google traffic works on Google Maps?
Yes.
It's actually kind of very surprising. It's like, I'm sure they use a bunch of different sources of data, but like one of the pieces of data that they use is actually people's cell phones.
Yeah.
And how fast those cell phones and their geolocation is moving along those roads. And then that aggregates probably into a model that has like many different factors of how to figure out, the traffic situation. But so in the kind of use case that you're describing, it's really interesting to think about, well, what if we stopped hacking at that and actually just got the real data about where the cars are and what they're doing, or at least like relative to each other.
Exactly. And how do you feel about Google having all the data on where you are and how fast you're driving and so on?
Right.
I mean, the same thing could be implemented as a decentralized application without a single entity getting all the data for them to use as they wish. It's pretty frightening, actually.
Right. So kind of getting back to my previous question, which is like, why would I, prefer to use the platform rather than go to the data source directly? You're kind of proposing that, well, there's a certain network effect, so your platform to be truly like effective should have a wide variety of data sources that you can kind of mix and match, and those data sources would be available across a standard kind of interface or API, right?
Exactly.
Am I thinking about that correctly?
Yes, exactly. And maybe Risto can shed some light on how we are planning to kickstart the marketplace to avoid the kind of empty disco problem that you kind of described.
Yeah, it's precisely what we've been kind of thinking a lot about in the kind of past few months. And the intention is certainly that we will provide, as a more like a public service, wide variety of data for free or for nominal price from various sources. This can be things like a financial data, but as well things like a smart city data, transport data, weather data, essentially data which is available at the moment, but not in one place. So what you will be seeing is a variety of sources in different sectors, all available in one place, one interface. Some of that will certainly be free, maybe at a lower frequency, and then depending on the kind of source, some maybe you may have to pay for, but we kind of fully intend to populate the data market initially by ourselves and by working with the various partners.
Right.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about like how you guys are thinking? Well, I was going to say, so like different data providers, right? They have very different formats or offerings, right? They usually have, someone who's like a fairly big data provider usually has many different types of data streams. Some of them are pull, some of them are push, some of them are more detailed, some of them less detailed. So can you talk about how your platform supports like the gamut of different pricing structures and formats that you might encounter, right, when trying to integrate a big data provider or just a lot of little different data providers?
Yeah, that's a good question. So technically, we definitely focus on the push-based case and the event-based case. So as I explained before, the whole architecture is based on the idea of publish-subscribe pattern, so that a data producer publishes a data point and it gets kind of pushed to the subscribers. For sure, there can be like APIs where you can query the latest data point in a stream or something like that to kind of support the more pool-based approach. But the optimal approach always is to get the data point out as soon as it's born, and after that it can be queried afterwards. Now, what kind of licensing could come into play here? How to price the data, how to have different kinds of licenses in there. So I think the most typical license in the old world especially is the time-based license. So you pay for the right to receive a certain data stream for a period of time. For example, a monthly subscription to some stock exchange data feed, right? On the Streamr platform, the data licenses are basically implemented as smart contracts. So you could have an arbitrary data license in there, but I don't see why the time-based licenses would be any bad. I mean, they're pretty convenient, right? You know exactly how much you pay, and you know exactly when your permission to receive the data ends. But there are other options, of course. Data could be valued by volume. For example, you would pay for each event that you receive or each megabyte transferred to you or something like that. That would require certain features on the network so that you can track the usage and work with the limited scalability of the underlying blockchains as well. But all of this is possible. All of this is possible now, and especially it can become much more fine-grained in the future with introduction of technologies such as plasma, for example, where we could have a child chain, like a Streamr child chain, which can do proof of stake validation of value transfers very, very quickly, and then kind of commit that to the underlying blockchain or something like this. So it's bound to change. But since we're an off-chain network and only occasionally commit something to the blockchain, we can live with for example, current day Ethereum just fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting question. Of course, I don't know the answers to them, but it just feels like there's probably a distinction between data that's useful sort of point-wise or data that's useful in aggregate. Like a few years ago, I think I remember hearing the data point that like the Twitter fire hose, like all of the Twitter messages was something like $1 million a month, at least in some deal. But you know, on the other hand, you might have sort of like signals that, let's say, highlight trading opportunities, or and so they're like individually very different, very valuable.
Exactly.
And and how do you price that? Well, maybe you price it by giving the data provider like a commission of the money that you were able to generate based on it.
Yeah, maybe that's difficult to verify though.
yeah, no, of course. But it's just like thinking out loud. So
I think the base case is that the seller kind of defines the price in there, but since the licensing is a smart contract, I guess very innovative models are possible there, just like you said. So for example, think of this use case. So if there's a trader, right, they subscribe to raw data from a crypto exchange or whatever, and they have some kind of secret black box algorithm which generates trading signals from that data. And then they sell those trading signals on the same network, right? So they're kind of adding value to the raw data by introducing their algorithm, which they don't share to others. They only share the output of that algorithm, and that would be a valuable use case and a good use case of the kind of data refinement chain. Somebody takes raw data, does something that kind of adds value to it, puts it out to the network. Maybe somebody else subscribes to trading signals from many different sources, aggregates that to some kind of super signal and sells that onwards, and so on. Like how long can we continue these kind of supply chains or value adding chains on the network? It's super interesting. I don't know the answer.
Right. So can you guys talk a little bit more about how how does blockchain technology like relate to the implementation of this? Are you using Ethereum or some other solution? Are you using smart contracts? What are the touch points with blockchain that you guys are doing?
Yeah. So in principle, our idea is blockchain agnostic. We only need to have a smart contract platform, but it can be Ethereum, it can be something else. We are currently planning and building for Ethereum because it's familiar to us, it's available, it's production ready, it's a very good starting point to begin our journey. I think we can support multiple different blockchains on the long run, or always migrate to the one that's the best and the prettiest. I don't know, but Ethereum is great to begin with because it just works for us, you know.
Does Streamr have a cryptographic token?
Yes. So the native token Datacoin is a usage token on the Streamr network. So it has basically two functionalities there. It's used as a kind of fuel in there. So the publishers and subscribers pay Datacoin for the service of the network, for the data transport itself. And this payment goes to the nodes, which we don't call miners, we call them brokers, to avoid confusion with the kind of CPU, GPU-based guessing of hashes. We don't do that. Instead, as I said, the broker nodes, they contribute bandwidth to the network and they get rewarded for doing the right thing. So basically they prove that this is going a bit technical again, but they kind of calculate a rolling hash of the data and use that to prove that they've done what they're supposed to do, and then receive the rewards in exchange for that. And also the Datacoin is used as a payment mechanism for the kind of data licensing. So the seller can set a price in Datacoin and the subscriber or buyer will pay them in the native token as well.
So it sounds like Bitcoin is for your decentralized network. Are you envisioning that as an ERC20 token on Ethereum?
Yes. It's actually already deployed, the token in there. We have a pre-sale starting on the 12th, so the token distribution isn't quite yet there, but it's out there already. If you go on Etherscan and search for data, which is the symbol, you will find the token. So it's out there.
Cool. And tell us a little bit about how you're thinking about fundraising. So I know you mentioned you started as a kind of a more traditional tech company. Was that funded by like venture or bootstrap by you guys? And then how do you see that translating into like an ICO, and we can talk a little bit more about the details of that.
Yeah. Well, in the kind of legacy business that we had, selling technology to enterprises and startups, of course, we had customers from big to small. We were pretty much income funded there, but it was more like it was quite project based, to be honest. The companies wanted to get a solution for some problem that they were fighting with, and we were able to help them with our platform. And one way for us to kind of get the product out there and kind of get the vision out there is to jump onto the decentralized bandwagon and be a part of building kind of technically very interesting brave new world where technology doesn't anymore exist in a centralized container somewhere, and data doesn't go through the servers of Google and Facebook, but instead kind of bring a new pattern, a new model to operate there. So it will be, the fundraising will go primarily to exactly development of the technology. But of course, we're building also the business side here. So how to get the marketplace up and running? Can it be a business model for the company governing the project to actually be one of the sellers on the decentralized marketplace? I mean, we won't be able to get commissions on the network itself because it's decentralized, right? So the money goes to the people running the nodes. Of course, the company can run some nodes as well, but that's hardly a business. So the business models from the traditional world, they kind of need to be reinvented in this space as well. And that is super interesting as well.
Absolutely, and that's one of the sort of major things that we study as a research team and at CoinFund, and like in many ways, blockchain has been a search and a struggle for understanding how private equity funded like business models mesh with the business models of decentralized networks, which usually have tokens.
Yeah.
And it's been very interesting to see different companies experiment with like completely different ways of doing that. And some companies have also missed the point. They're trying to build like very traditional models around decentralized networks that don't have a way of through a token economics, and that's, I think, long term going to be highly disadvantageous for them. But so how do you see, in that context, how do you see Streamr, building a private for-profit, if you will, revenue generation model?
Well, I think it's also Risto can comment on this. I'm again picking all the questions here, but I think that's something we need to figure out. I mean, we're here for the tech basically, and if the end result is that we raise the funds, we build the technology for 3 to 5 years and push it out to the world, and that's it, then I think it's fine. I mean, it doesn't need us to operate because it's decentralized. It will build a community. It will be open source. So what role does the business have there anymore? Some projects are doing foundations and DAOs. We chose the company model because it's flexible. It's much easier to make decisions in the company, and especially as it's uncharted territory and an ambitious infrastructure project, there's bound to be unknowns during the journey. So the company structure will allow us to kind of navigate there. And if we come up with a business model that's kind of sustainable for the company, for example, reselling data feeds on our own network, we will have an ongoing business. But if not, then we'll at least have built a kick-ass piece of decentralized technology in there, which will hopefully move the world forward one step.
I would maybe just add to that, if I may. One of our friends have suggested that maybe the thing is indeed is to kind of provide and build a public utility. It's provide the data transport in real time in a decentralized way as a service to anybody who wants to kind of publish their data, subscribe to the data, like for the common good. I think and I believe there will be lots of good business opportunities in the kind of data market, for instance.
Yeah.
On processing analytics of the data, but even building that service for anybody's use can be a huge thing, and I think it will bring the opportunities to actually make money out of this.
Yeah, and actually one business model that's out there just waiting for someone to grab it is kind of the curation of the marketplace, right? So if you look at the Google Play Store, it's full of garbage, and Apple is doing, in some sense, a better job at curating their app store. So it's clearly something that takes some effort, but provides some value to the user base and the community. So could something like that apply to data streams as well? Well, for sure, I think. I mean, how to separate between several sellers offering the same kind of data, for example. Maybe they can identify themselves. Maybe there's a reputation mechanism going on. But maybe there are some dark sides to the kind of free-for-all Wild West, which is the decentralized world. Maybe there's going to be data stream piracy. I mean, someone subscribes to a stream that needs to be paid for, and just like publishes that for free on the network. So this kind of activity should somehow be disincentivized on the network, or at least made less profitable in there. And I think the kind of network curation or peer validation, there are some ways to do that, and those also kind of give rise to new kinds of business models in that space.
Yeah, totally. Very, very fascinating topic. One other thing I wanted to call out that you guys haven't talked about is, and this is also one of the core issues that we study, in the course of our research, which is the issue of the different crypto-economic incentives, or just economic incentives of the different participants. And one thing that I'm really excited about, kind of in blockchain as a whole, is decentralized social media. And on the one hand, social media apps, it's one of those things where, when your friend comes to you and says, "Hey, I'm building a Facebook competitor," you're kind of like, "Oh, ooh." But then you look at the economic systems behind Steemit, recently behind Leroy.io, which is like a decentralized Twitter clone, and you kind of realize that actually it's amazingly simple to disintermediate the network effects of these big companies, and to attract users to your platform using the kind of economic incentives afforded by cryptocurrency, just because it's so efficient and so available and so valuable as well. And one thing that I would encourage you guys to think about is, like, how can you use that kind of model to actually jumpstart like your ecosystem and bring many different participants to both sides of that market. And there's many different ways of doing that, and some of which have already been demonstrated kind of in production.
Yeah.
It's just to call out, like, one thing that comes to mind as a recent trend is, like, many ICO backed companies actually reserve like vast swaths of their token supply to highly align partners and developers and participants with their ecosystem. And that is one of the, in my opinion, is one of the killer applications of cryptocurrency, because not just every tech startup, and not just every startup, but like every business, right, has the problem of building a community of customers and and partners, and cryptocurrency tends to be able to do that quite effectively.
Yeah, there could certainly be some kind of early adopter rewards, which is easy to arrange with tokens. The first data sellers could get some kind of bonuses. The first users could get some kind of bonuses on there. We have a community reserve out of the token pool. It's not vast, to be honest, but of course, we can always source more tokens from the company reserve as needed. We're also thinking of doing maybe an airdrop of the tokens to enable everyone to have some data token already in their wallets, which would be another amazing thing and kind of drive the network effect to accelerate that. So let's see. It's kind of early to decide on that exactly, but this is anyway how we think, of course.
Got it. So let me ask you guys one last question, which is, and also we have some people ask us in the chat.
Cool.
Can you talk a little bit about what are you thinking in terms of partnerships? Someone said, I learned about Streamr from Golem platform. And also, is Streamr doing anything for Melonport, for example?
Yeah. We've been in touch with Melonport, but I'll start with Golem since that's our kind of official partner. So sometime this summer we announced a collaboration with Golem, and well, it's kind of a long story, but in our stack, as I said, we're making the messaging infrastructure and we're making two applications on it. One of them is the marketplace, but we also have the kind of analytics engine in there. And from the start, it's been quite clear how we'll build the network and how we'll build the marketplace. But how do we decentralize the analytics engine, right? So how it currently works in the old world and the old infrastructure is that we have like a cluster of servers on Amazon or whatever, and the kind of computation engine is running in there and ingesting data from the network and producing output onto the network. But we don't want to do that. We want it to be possible to run that in a decentralized way. And now Golem, of course, is decentralizing the kind of computation container, which people will be able to run on their own machines and host application instances in there to do some kind of computation. And the first use case for Golem that they're doing is the 3D rendering thing. But on their roadmap, of course, it's meant to support a more generic range of applications. And they've been thinking about microservices and stuff like that. And suddenly we pop up and say, hey, look, we want to do this kind of microservice engine in a decentralized way. And suddenly things kind of started clicking in there. And we realized there's a lot of shared problem space we can work on with them. And we can actually work towards a vision where the Streamr network could be used as a kind of networking layer inside the Golem container, or between different Golem containers, or between Golem containers and applications, because it's not trivial to open network connectivity into the container, because it exposes the application to attacks, as well as makes it possible to use it for abuse, such as distributed denial of service attacks and so on. So the Streamr client living inside the Golem container could actually work as a safe gateway to a decentralized peer-to-peer network where all data is signed and so on. So this would kind of build a service available for decentralizable applications running inside the container. And this idea can actually be extended so that we could envision a stack of decentralized services being available for applications running in the decentralized container, kind of replacing existing cloud services. So you have file storage on Amazon S3 and so on. You have database services, so on. I think each of these layers will be replaced with decentralized counterparts, where Golem provides the computation, IPFS and Swarm provide block storage, and there are other players out there, and Streamr provides the kind of real-time data pipeline and analytics in there. And that's a super interesting idea. Again, getting deeply technical, but I hope we'll see some prototypes, proof of concepts out of this in the near future. But of course, at the very moment, the Golem guys are busy with getting the brass release out. So I hope that happens and succeeds.
Awesome. Risto, Henry, thank you very much for joining us. Is there any, first of all, where should our viewers go to learn more about Streamr project, and any final thoughts?
Well, go and check out our website, and please join our community Slack channel. We'll both be there, me and Risto, to answer your questions, as well as other members from the team. And also sign up and try the engine and the editor. They're up and running, and you can go and start using them right now. Does Risto have anything? Hi to mom or something?
No, that's all very good words there. We got the blog as well at blogstreamer.com. So go and have a look. If you're in Amsterdam tomorrow, in Berlin on Thursday, come and say hello.
Awesome.
Yeah, we'll be doing meetups in those cities this week. Super.
Fantastic. Well, once again, thanks for joining, guys, and we'll tweet out the video when YouTube finishes processing it. And thank you for telling us about Streamr.
Perfect. Thank you, Jake, for having us. Catch you later.
Have a good one.
Bye.